One of the most important things to remember when we're practicing with our dogs or just in daily life is that they don't actually speak English. Even though sometimes they seem like they do and they understand a lot, everything we're telling them is a foreign language. So if we want our dogs to respond to us well and listen to us, we need to be very consistent with the words that we use, and we need to be very simple. So having a few basic sets of words and cues that always mean the same thing and are always very consistent is going to lead to a much better trained and well-behaved dog than having a million different commands and cues you use all the time. So what I want to go over in this video is a few words that you're going to be using anytime you're practicing, as well as in other situations in daily life. And these words are called our marker words because they mark exactly what the dog did and they let the dog know what consequence is going to follow. And so these words are very useful because they allow us to have a buffer period between when we can reward or correct and when the behavior that we like or don't like occurs. But we need to make sure that these words have meaning and that these words have value to the dog. So we want to be consistent when we use them, and we want to practice with them as if they were a regular cue that we would teach them, like sit or down, because we're going to be using them pretty regularly and we want them to have an impact. So, ready? The three main marker words that we're going to be using is our reward marker. We actually have two reward markers. So we're going to have a terminal reward marker and a duration reward marker. And if that sounds confusing and fancy, don't worry, I'm going to explain it. Our terminal reward marker, let's break that down. So our reward marker marks the dog's going to get a reward. All right, they do something that we like, we're going to mark it, we're going to reward them. Terminal means that it is finished. So our terminal reward marker is the one that we're going to use when the dog does something we like and we're done with them doing it. So if we're working on stays and we want to release them to food, we want to release them to a toy, this is the word that we're going to use. I use yes, so this is what he's learned is yes, means that if we're working on something, when he hears that word, he should get really excited, he should come to me, he should expect some play, he should expect some food, he's allowed to get up and have some fun. And if I want that word to maintain value, I need to make sure that I am ready to reward afterward. I don't need to have food in my hand or get it in his face when I say the word. I actually don't want to do that. What I want to do is I want to say the word as soon as he does that thing that I like, and then I have time to get into my pockets, grab a treat, go over to the counter, grab a treat from the bag or from his bag of kibble, or get a toy ready for him. Now the other word that is also a reward marker, our duration reward marker, is the same thing. It's going to also mark and tell him that a reward is coming because he did something correctly. However, because we want to reward for duration, we're going to be using this with stays. So we're going to show him that the word means that when he hears this, he should keep doing what he's currently doing, and that reward is going to come to him. He can't get up and come get it. He's not finished. He shouldn't get really excited and burst out of position. He should stay doing what he's doing, and I'll bring that reward to him. And then after he gets it, he should continue doing what he was doing. I like to have these two distinct words because I don't want to have any confusion for the dog. If I'm working on stays, I want to be able to reward that stay, and I don't want to get him mixed up by thinking that he's done now. Right? It's going to be hard to reward stays if the word we use to mark that he's doing the thing correctly and he's going to get a reward always means that he can get up. But there are situations where I want some more excitement and I want him to be finished. Like if we're teaching a new behavior, I don't mind if he gets up right away because I can't really expect to stay in that scenario. So I don't mind using yes and having him get up a bunch of times in a row. Or if I'm working on recalls or retention, and I want some more enthusiasm from him, or I want some focus around distractions, then yes can be a lot more engaging and a lot more exciting for him than just good and bringing something simple to him. So that's the reason that we use two separate words. I try to be on top of that If you don't always reward your goods, you don't always reward your yeses, it's not the end of the world, but I want you to try to think of it as you're making a promise to the dog. If I say this word, some kind of good reward is gonna follow. Just wait a second, but it will happen. You're not gonna ruin it if you miss out on a few rewards, but I like to be pretty consistent, especially if we're working on something kind of difficult or new. Now, the other marker word that I have isn't a reward marker, it's actually a punishment marker or a no reward marker. Again, if this is confusing, I'll explain. So I will use a word to mark if the dog does something that I don't like, or if, he's gotten up from doing something he was supposed to do. If he was supposed to be staying and he gets up, I'll use this word. If he's barking or pulling, I'll use this word. And what this word means is that he needs to either go back to what he was doing before, the stay that I was asking him to do, or he needs to stop doing what he's currently doing, or there's gonna be some kind of consequence. And so by punishment, no reward marker, what I mean is we can use a consequence like a leash pop or an e-collar correction, and actually use something punishing and physical to say, hey buddy, you have to stop doing that, you just can't do that, and if you don't stop, some kind of thing is going to result that you're not going to like very much. Now we can also use this word to tell him that he is going to be punished in a different way. We're not necessarily using some kind of aversive, but I will take away something that he wants, right? So that's the no reward marker. If we're working on stays and he pops up and I'm about to give him a treat, I'll use this word and I'll take that treat away. And so he understands that this word can have multiple different consequences. He's not reliant on having the e-collar on or you having food with you. It can be a whole slew of different things that can be a consequence if he doesn't listen to this word and respect this word. And so I use no. And we'll demonstrate that in some other practice videos of different ways that we can incorporate no and keep that tight. But again, as with our other marker words, it's going to be very important that we are consistent with following through. Now, if I say no, I don't always correct the dog. I don't always give them some kind of actual punishment. They have a chance to fix themselves, right? If I say no because he's barking and he stops barking, I'm not going to correct him. If I say no because he gets up and he hops back down, I'm not going to correct him. I might not give him a reward that time, but I'm not going to punish him. I'm not going to say, oh, bad dog. I'm just going to let him go back down doing what he was supposed to do, give him a second, and then I'll reward again. And so just to demonstrate that pretty quickly with him, to show that we want a lot of enthusiasm when we use these words, I can do a quick little behavior with him. So if I ask him, oh yeah, you're a good boy, down, aren't you? Come here. Up. Down. Good. If I tell him good, he knows the treat's coming to him and he shouldn't get up. Good. You'll also notice that I say the word before the reward comes. Again, this is because I want him to understand what that word means. And if I'm doing good and I'm giving the treat at the same time, it's gonna get confusing for him. He's gonna focus on this movement, the treat coming to him. He's not gonna pay attention to the word that I used, and he's gonna have a hard time understanding it in the context that we need, when we don't have a reward on us immediately. Good. See, I wanna say the word first, and then I'll bring the reward to him, so he makes that connection. Now that's for staying. If I wanna release him, and I want some excitement with his release, I'll use yes. And then he can get up, he can chase the treat. I might give him a couple in a row. I want some enthusiasm from him when he does that. Down. Thank you. Now we'll see if we can't trip him up, and I can use my no reward marker. Good, you're too good at this, bud. Nope. Good. See, the treat goes away. It's only gonna come back once he squats back down and does what he's supposed to do. Nope. Good. I don't want a reward immediately after he pops back down. I want to wait a second and make sure he's committed. I might even try that same thing again. Good. That's a good boy. Good. Yes. Now the last thing that the last word that I'll use that isn't really a reward marker, but we're also not saying that he's doing anything wrong, So I don't really want to call it a marker word because we're not telling him necessarily that he's doing anything that's going to get him a reward. But it is a word that we're going to be using a lot to tell him when he's free to go, but he's not necessarily getting a treat. And so this word is break. And that just means that he's allowed to get up, he's allowed to go outside, he's allowed to go sniff the grass, he's allowed to go say hi, but there's no reward for him, right? So if we're doing a bunch of downs or a bunch of sits or some stuff that's really easy for him with low distractions, I don't need to be giving him a treat every single time. I want him able to do some repetitions without needing a reward for each one. But I also need a way to tell him that he's done staying, right? So I don't want to ruin my reward marker by using it a bunch and then not rewarding him. So I use a different word that means he's done, but he shouldn't really expect to get super excited. He shouldn't expect a reward from it. And again, that word is break. And so that'll look like, down, good boy, break. That's a good boy. I might pat him on the head for it or move and pat my leg. Some dogs get kind of sloppy or confused with their breaks because there's no reward in it. So they're not really sure if they're supposed to get up, or they don't really want to get up because there's no reason to. It's pretty boring. They can just stay doing what they're doing. And so if you run into that, what I'll do is I'll do a few reps of break to a food reward, but I'm not going to do it consistently. So it's like he knows that sometimes when he gets up, when I say break, he gets a treat, but not usually, so he shouldn't get too excited. But he can still get up just in case of it. And that can help clarify what break means to the dog. Good boy. Or I'll just hook my finger under the collar and pull him forward and get him up, or pat my leg and have him follow me. Good boy. But he's pretty good at those. He likes to get up and get love.